Hello, my name is Tony. A little diversion then, taking some time to take stock. After 5 years of throwing together video reviews of films I have watched down the decades. As things currently stand, on one leg, blindfolded on a tightrope over Niagara Falls, this dirty dozen are the most watched and most commented on efforts the channel has produced. And therefore the gospel according to Killer Film Reviews, or KFR if you like, informs that these are 12 films you really need to see, theoretically. So let's take a trip down memory lane, dear pilgrims, and train a medium-paced butchers on the dozen and ponder how they got there, why they are there, and what it means. Remembering these are not my choices, but the choices of those who have alighted here on these tempestuous celluloid shores over the years. They are the people's choices, and I am nothing if I am not a man of the... Right, I'm not reading any more of this bilge. Let's crack on. At number 12, we have director Michael Winner's flint-hard, gloriously evil-spirited, implacably relentless and granite-hearted pursuit western, Chato's Land. In Winner's first screen collaboration with actor Charles Bronson, he plays the titular Chato. He's a mixed-race Native American who rides into town for a drink in the saloon. The racist redneck sheriff takes offense at his mere existence and is having the sheer effrontery to walk into a public bar. He lets loose with hate speech, draws down on Chato, who blows him away with no more emotion than if he'd stepped on a cockroach. Then our boy rides out. A posse led by ex-Confederate officer Quincy Whitmore, Jack Palance, give chase. The posse mostly comprise retarded, racist, bigoted miscreants and malcontents. Chato leads them into his home territory and sets about systematically wiping them out. It's a simple scenario underpinned by complex socio-political undercurrents. Fantastically harsh, brilliantly cruel, utterly unforgiving, a stone-cold Western classic. The Winner haters would have it differently, but they're wrong. This is essential viewing, whether you like Westerns or not. Alan Sharp's sparse and muscular script has much to say about war, racism, and the merciless righteousness of karma, but doesn't preach or sermonize for a single instant. If you take your revenge served cold, get it down you. Number 11, When Eight Bells Toll. This adaptation of Alistair MacLean's James Bond imitation sees a very young Anthony Hopkins step into the shoes and flippers of Royal Navy Commander Philip Calvert. A rip-roaring boy's own adventure, Calvert is sent to investigate the disappearance of British bullion ships off the coast of Scotland. A gang is boarding them, killing the crew, scuttling the ships and retrieving the gold from the sunken depths. The locals are hostile, the seas are choppy, and the action breathless and kinetic. High-grade pulp with a fantastic score, magnificent location scenery, and an energetic performance from Hopkins in the role of a professional bastard as he's described by the resident femme fatale. One critic said his performance made James Bond look like a lounge lizard. Planned as a franchise to rival Bond, underperformance at the box office meant that we never got any further Philip Calvert adventures. But what we got was great. At number 10, 3 Days of the Condor, which is 3 less days than the book it's based on, as that gave us 6. Don't feel shortchanged though. Robert Redford and Faye Dunaway are the glamorized accessories fronting Sidney Pollack's twisty and icily proficient paranoid spy flick. CIA literature analyst Turner goes on the run when his entire section is hit by a team of assassins led by a terrifyingly composed Max von Sydow. Lost and alone, not knowing who to trust, a spy left out in the cold. Turner is the victim of a conspiracy at the very heart of the CIA, and if he doesn't solve the mystery soon, a personalized mortuary slab with his name on it awaits. Fast-moving, atmospheric, and fabulously slick. It stands up well in the company of The Parallax View, All the President's Men, and The Conversation as a top-tier post-Watergate fable of paranoia and big government corruption. Number 9, Ulzana's Raid. Director Robert Aldrich had a thing for damaged machismo and characters in impossible situations, striving to survive against the odds. Burt Lancaster is the veteran, world-weary and battle-hardened Indian scout on that one last mission we all know is going to be a bitch and then some. When a raiding party goes off the reservation, raping and pillaging with savage abandon, they must be located and stopped. It's not as easy as it sounds, because the world is full of idiots who know better, and they're the ones in charge. Ulzana's raid is a magnificently observed exercise in terraforming the landscape of the traditional cavalry western. It rings with a timeless political campanology that still chimes and resonates today. Saddle up, pilgrims. In 8th place rests one of the truly greatest films ever made, Sam Peckinpah's The Wild Bunch. In the same year of release, whilst George Roy Hill was dominating the box office with a vaudeville-themed fantasy western for people who didn't like westerns, Peckinpah was determined to make a western for people who wanted to see what the West might really have been like. William Holden, Ernest Borgnine, Warren Oates and Ben Jonson are the men who have outlived their time and are fast running out of time. The most elegiac, poetic, emotionally poignant and beautifully crafted example of the genre, revisionist and peerless in its scope and vision. A wake-up call. Peckinpah was fixated on providing a realistic, cathartic method of examining in detail the process and effects of violence. Traditional Hollywood westerns had a go-bang, hold the chest, grimace and fall-over theatricality. Peckinpah kept the go-bang bit, but replaced the rest with a painstaking, upfront and personal ballet of bullet-riddled flesh-rent, blood-spurting agony, because real violent dying is hard, protracted, messy, and extremely painful. The Wild Bunch was groundbreaking in redefining a genre and extending the potential of mainstream cinema as an art form. What else can you say? At 7, we got the very pinnacle of documentary-style thrillers with Fred Zinnemann's The Day of the Jackal, a clever, meticulous, intricately crafted, neo-realistic slice of sheer entertainment. Because although it's filmed like a high-end forensic biography, it is incredibly entertaining to experience. Edward Fox's super-cool assassin is engaged by a bunch of disenchanted French right-wingers to take out the then-president, Charles de Gaulle. Now, even though we know historically de Gaulle didn't stop a sniper bullet, the film pulls off the trick of making you think he still might, and furthermore coerces you against your better judgment into empathizing with a ruthless killer. I mean, right up to the end, I really wanted de Gaulle to cop one in the brain pan. I cursed the moment he bent down to kiss that midget. And no, it isn't just because I hate the French. It's a monument to developing escalating tension and suspense. When people say they don't make them like that anymore, I don't think it's the will that's missing so much, just the talent. That we ain't got nowadays. Snagging the number 6 spot is my favourite film of all time, and I'd have been sorely disappointed if it wasn't in the top 12 somewhere. Mike Hodges' transcendent Get Carter, possibly the best film ever made, in which Michael Caine, steel-tempering a ruthless career-defining performance, is London-based gangster Jack Carter. When his brother dies in a car accident in his Newcastle homeland, Jack goes back there for the funeral and to investigate. An avenging angel with no understanding of the words restraint and fear, he cuts a swathe through the criminal underbelly up north to get to the truth. A genius essay in reckless, black-hearted nihilism, Get Carter has not one wasted, superfluous scene, nor one word of dialogue out of place, as near to pitch-perfect perfection as you're ever likely to get. If I was told I could watch only one more film in my lifetime, I'd watch this. That's the highest recommendation I can bestow. Right, who fancies wasting a shit ton of Nazis? Because Where Eagles Dare is up next at number 5. From the prolific quill of Alistair MacLean, this is the ultimate boys' own fantasy wartime adventure. Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood infiltrate a supposedly impregnable castle in the Bavarian Alps on a mission so convoluted I still to this day have trouble getting my head around it. Don't pay that any mind though, just hook up for the frantic thrill ride as our two heroes run, gun, blow up and blast 7 shades of Shinola out of those pesky sons of the fatherland. Armed with dual-wield machine guns, yep, that's where Wolfenstein got it from, Eastwood racks up his highest on-screen body count, all backed by breathtaking scenery, groovy direction from Brian G. Hutton, and a storming score by Ron Goodwin. It might just be my favourite World War II movie of all time, which is saying a lot. Something by the old maestro then, Sir Alfred Hitchcock, was bound to make the cut, and it did. At 4 is his penultimate movie, Frenzy. Filmed back in his native London, in and around Covent Garden Market, this is a masterclass of suspenseful style and atmosphere from the undisputed master of both. Stagey, theatrical it may well be, but it showcases in equal measure the grisly and the blackly humorous in effortlessly grandstanding fashion. A psychosexual murderer of women is stalking the patch, throttling his victims to death with a necktie. The narrative feeds directly into one of Hitch's favourite tropes, the wrong man scenario. The ex-husband of one of the victims is the prime suspect. Richard Blaney, John Finch, is the hapless dupe on the lam, while super sleazy perp Robert Rusk, Barry Foster, and Blaney's friend and confidant, continues to ply his twisted trade unimpeded. Amidst sly winks and arch nods to the audience, Hitch employs dazzling visual tricks and some terrific set pieces to ramp up the tension and manipulate the viewer. No one is likely to forget in a hurry the journey in the back of a potato lorry with a corpse. The snapping of the cadaver's rigor mortis fingers will see to that. It's the only Hitchcock film I've ever seen in a cinema, and in conflict with popular critical wisdom, I will insist it's one of his very best, and my personal Hitch favourite. Lovely! And so to the top 3. Somewhat surprisingly, to me anyway, a sci-fi sequel lands in the number 3 position, Beneath the Planet of the Apes. I saw this before I saw the Franklin J. Schaffner original Planet of the Apes, which is a 60s science fiction classic, and as a kid I was knocked out by it, which is why I reviewed it. I honestly thought few would be interested, but my thoughts are often grave miscalculations, something which should be obvious to you by now. After the events of the first film, astronaut Taylor, Charlton Heston, is roaming the Badlands of future Earth in search of answers. He and his companion, the mute slave girl Nova, Linda Harrison, run into some creepy illusionary shit. Meanwhile, astronaut Brent, James Franciscus, has crash-landed on the planet. He's been sent on the same trajectory as the original space mission to find out what happened to Taylor and his crew. There's a war brewing between the apes and the only humans who survived the nuclear holocaust. As this is the cynical 70s, now thoroughly disillusioned of the 60s countercultural peace and love movement, the human commune ain't no hippie nirvana. They're a society of telepathic mutants living underground and worshipping the last remaining nuclear warhead. This ain't gonna end well, one suspects, and it doesn't. Yeah, it's cheaper and less creatively valid a proposition than its predecessor, an elevated B-movie, but I like it a lot, perhaps even more so considering the conflicts in the world of today. There are notable parallels one can't fail to miss, Never Learning being one. Perhaps equally surprising is the positioning at number 2 of the latter-day John Wayne western Big Jake. The Duke largely rejected the revisionism of the spaghetti westerns and Peckinpah and clung to the traditional Hollywood western framework he'd been an integral part of since the 1930s. Although he did make some concessions, Big Jake is a more violent and harsher toned affair than usual, and Wayne's character acknowledges the aging process whilst observing the last days of the Old West, what with the inclusion of motorized vehicles and automatic weaponry. It foreshadows some of the themes and constructs of Wayne's final film, The Shootist. Jake McCandless, Wayne, is an old-school hard-ass living on his own terms and estranged from his wealthy, ranch-owning family, the matriarch of which is his wife, Martha Maureen O'Hara. When the Fane gang, led by John Fane, Richard Boone, kidnap Jake's grandson for ransom, Martha reasons that someone just as unpleasant and ruthless as Fane and his men will be required to get the kid back. So, looks like Daddy's coming home, so to speak. It's terrific fun, and for my money, the best of Wayne's 70s output. Finally, at numero uno, and again somewhat unexpectedly, is Sam Peckinpah's last masterpiece, the war movie Cross of Iron. Set on the Eastern Front in 1943, the driving force of the narrative is the existential class conflict between cynical, embittered professional soldier and combat veteran Steiner, James Coburn, and arrogant, inveterate, coward and Prussian aristocrat Stransky, Maximilian Schell. Steiner hates officers and the war, but his exploits in battle have won him the Iron Cross. Stransky considers the medal to be the ultimate badge of honour and covets it, yet lacks the required courage and mettle to warrant it. Cross is a powerful, tough, realistic, action-packed, emotionally intelligent and thought-provoking evocation of men at war with the enemy, each other, and their individual selves, and naturally the ultimate damning futility of it all. Possibly Coburn's best screen performance, backed by a stellar supporting cast. Although the choppy editing and the occasionally clunky scripting boner drew fire, that's small beer when you're experiencing Sam Peckinpah's final creative push to reaffirm that he was one of the greatest directorial talents America ever produced. Orson Welles, no less, called it the best anti-war film since All Quiet on the Western Front. And I, for one, am not going to disagree with him. Cross of Iron rocks. Well, that's the rundown. Now, what does it all mean? To be honest, I don't know. In the final analysis, I can explain what it is, but not how it came to be, or what it amounts to. Out of these 12 films, we got 4 westerns, 4 action thrillers, 2 war films, 1 psychological suspense drama, and 1 science fiction flick. Cross of Iron has the most views of any review on the channel, a little over 50,000. Compared with even the lower performing mid-pack YouTube channels generally, that figure is next to nothing. For this channel it's huge though, as most reviews struggle to get over the 1,000 views line. I don't really care about that. Views and comments are great, and I'm thankful for them, so don't go thinking I'm not. But they're not now nor ever were my reason for doing it. Selfishly, I'm doing it for me, to see the films I would like to see reviewed get reviewed. For instance, I'd never seen a video review of Innocent Bystanders and couldn't find one online, so I did one and said the things I would have wanted such a review to say. So for anyone looking for such a review, they might come across it. Or maybe not. I don't get how YouTube and its fabled algorithm works, but it's intriguing to me to consider the reasons for the relative failure of KFR to reach much of an audience. Again, let me be clear, if no one watched, I'd still be doing it for my own egocentric satisfaction. Yes, I am exactly that sort of arsehole. Still, my observations, such as they are, throw up some conflicting factors, but here we go. KFR is a niche channel. By that, I mean the focus is mainly on films I like and films I want to review, some of which I don't like. Most are films I've seen in the cinema. They are predominantly older films because I find most new films made in the last 2 decades, and increasingly now, are not worth the time of day. I tend to go for horror, thriller, war, western, action, espionage and sci-fi movies. Not usually anything soft and cuddly. Any appeal is likely to be for the older, more male end of the audience spectrum. It's not broad and dynamic, plugged into youth culture, but then I don't particularly want it to be. The less I have to do with Gen Z, the happier I am. Any generation that considers inadequacy a core value doesn't need my attention, nor I theirs. Some have suggested I should review new movies, and for the sake of experimentation, I've done that a few times. They got less attention than the older stuff. Seems I'm not alone in not liking those films. It's a fact that people may not like me or my approach. I know, can you believe it? But that is more than fair enough. Be in no doubt, at some point I will say and do something that will offend everyone, whoever you are. It will happen. It has happened. And those less well-adjusted and able to reconcile with it will get peeved, miffed, angry, and walk away. Their fundamental right and choice. I'm not always being serious, you know, but if someone's hard of thinking, takes stuff personally, there's nothing I can or want to do to mediate or patronize that. Me and YouTube are sometimes not on the same page. I've had reviews demonetized, restricted and removed, getting channel strikes into the bargain. I've adjusted, censored content, pleaded the case and marvelled at just how inoffensive some of the vids have been. Nope, once a decision has been made, that's your lot. I have a suspicion that when you get a channel strike, the YouTube algorithm disengages from pushing or promoting your channel. You're just an annoyance, a pest, a liability, and you're on the naughty step until we say you're not. This is where I sit mostly, but you must have the courage of your convictions and at least some shred of personal integrity. It can't all be about pandering to a hypersensitive, inadequate minority. And who really thinks kids on YouTube don't lie about their age when signing up? Get real. To conclude, I would be very interested in hearing anyone's take on the 12 most watched video reviews on KFR, their insights, theories, ideas and feelings about them. One of my early conclusions was that war movies and westerns do well. Bit of an obvious one to come to, really. Then I realised that I've reviewed a fair few war and western flicks that got next to no views and didn't do very well at all. Someone once advised that on YouTube horror fantasy subjects get the most views, yet there are no horror fantasy films on that list. So, pilgrims, whatever anyone comes up with in terms of analysis and conclusions, I'd really like to know your thoughts and impressions. Hit me up. Thank you for your time and attention. Sincerely. The lions kept their counsel. They've been silent down the years. Blinded gaze scanned the daily grind. I was just a likely tourist, full of wonderment and questions, answers that I knew I'd never find. Towers of glass rose high above, puncturing the clouds in the sky. Across London Bridge, a prisoner of love, as the raindrops fell into my eyes. In a new world, passing me by. The column stood in quiet marble statues built on dreams, eternally still, towering all alone. I continued on my journey through the shadowlands of commerce, treading on the blood and flesh and bone. Towers of glass rose high above, puncturing the clouds in the sky. Across London Bridge, a prisoner of love, as the raindrops fell into my eyes. In a new world, passing me by. I could argue I was just a kid. As arguments go, I'd lose it. Every fucked up thing I ever did, self-pity won't excuse it. Of houses sleeping, windows sightless and serene, Victorian churchyards, ivy clung to graves. I lingered looking backwards, every sleeps. Towers of glass rose high above, puncturing the clouds in the sky. Across London Bridge, a prisoner of love, as the teardrops fell from my eyes. In a new world